please come to order. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Brickway?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Here.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Present.
Let the record show all 7 members are present. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the written minutes of the June 23rd council meeting.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to approve the written minutes of the June 23rd council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to approve the written minutes of the June 23rd council meeting. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Next on the agenda, we have to discuss ordinance 20, which is the proposed charter amendments. I don't know, I forget who had asked to have it put on, but Mayor, if you'd like to start.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am, after further discussion with our consultant, Mark Wendling, I'm asking that ordinance number 20 be tabled so that further discussion and input can be heard from our residents through the community engagement process. After talking with Mark Wendling, trying to get this on the November ballot by the required August deadline does not allow really for the residents to have much of an opportunity, nor does it allow for any amendments to be made to the ordinance, and of course the supporting documentation for the charter that has to be submitted to the Board of Elections. It seems more appropriate to try for May of 2023 after a proper community assessment can be performed. So I am asking for council again to table ordinance number 20, 2022.
All right. We'll address that obviously at the next council meeting then. We'll move to reports of administrative officials. Mayor Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Saturday evening is our adult pool night and concert at the Aquatic Center. The legendary Cincinnati band, The Remains, will be playing under the pavilion starting at 7 p.m. So bring your coolers, chairs, swimsuits for a fun night of swimming and music. The Village Recreation Department will be providing free hot dogs while supplies last. The pool entry is free for residents 21 and older and $5 for non-residents without a season pass. German Luau merchandise will also be available for pre-sale via cash and check only that evening. But we would like to thank our generous sponsor, Joe Brickler and ORI Properties, for sponsoring this event. Also, I had asked that we discuss the SRO position. While I'm on that, just to let you know, the contract is in progress. But at this point, the St. Bernard-Elmwood Place School District has committed to implementing the school resource officer position for the upcoming school year. The financial commitment of the school district will consist of 75% of the total compensation for that officer, which will be estimated at a total of $114,377.18, which totals $85,782.89 for the district and $28,594.30 for the village. There will be contingencies built in for pay increases, and the village will provide a cruiser for use, training, and necessary equipment for the officer.
Mr. President.
Mr. Taberky.
John, is that just a one-year deal? Is that all they're going to commit to?
The goal would it not be a one-year deal. I mean, it would be, at this point, the school district's intent is it being long-term. But as far as the terms of the contract are yet to be determined, but it's going to be more than a year. I mean, we would want a greater commitment than 1 year.
Correct. Everything you said just said 1 year, so I was just curious. You talking about
I
for next
made,
year.
you are correct, Mr. Taberky. I did use the word year. I used totals in dollar amounts. I didn't say, I just wanted to give you a total. I didn't average it over 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I just said what it would cost per year, but it is intended to be a long-term contract.
Okay. Anything else? Not the.
Not about that, but
All right.
Mr. President, I would like to ask if we actually could also go into executive session regarding collective bargaining, if possible, at the end of the meeting. And then I do have one more item as far as what I had passed out, and I don't know if you want this under something else, but in reference to a proposed crosswalk being constructed on Mitchell Avenue in cooperation with Roger Bacon High School. So I didn't know when was a
Might as
good
well-
time
might
to
as well go
discuss
ahead.
that.
You got the
All right.
floor, go for it.
So I have presented to each of you, the schematics for this project were done by the city of Cincinnati. We've been working with Roger Bacon on this project for some time. They really want this to happen with the increased speeding on Mitchell Avenue, and they want to be able to utilize the parking lot that they have, which they feel is underutilized at this point because it's only being used specifically for sporting events, when they feel at this point this could take the majority of the students off of the residential neighborhood areas that they are basically congesting, which does cause a lot of issues with our residents. But the goal would be to move those students down into that lot, which would allow for them to cross there at Mitchell. Basically, on the second page, just so you're aware, there's an aerial shot showing of the proposed pathway that would be constructed going from actual Mitchell Avenue over into the Friars Lot, which would directly connect with the steps going up to Roger Bacon. So the goal at this as well is to even explore the opportunity with the city of Cincinnati to see if we could even potentially get that area classified as a school zone, because there will actually be more people crossing at that crosswalk than there are from the one that appears on Vine Street directly in front of Bacon. At this point, there is an estimate that's been put together from Pruce Construction, and what I would actually like to do, because again, I believe it affects our village more than it does the city of Cincinnati, so I feel that taking on financial responsibility is a necessity, but I would actually like to take on potentially 50% of the cost of the project for the crosswalk itself. So the total cost of the project regarding the crosswalk, which again, the construction of the build-out and the bump-outs on the street on either side, installing 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and striping the crosswalk itself, is a total financial commitment for the project itself of $113,060. And I would like to make a proposal that the Village of St. Bernard make a 50% commitment for that cost at this point, and then it would be up to Roger Bacon to come up with the remaining portion through their fundraising and through the province of St. John. Right now, currently, the city of Cincinnati, their financial commitment has been basically the engineering on the project itself, but they have not made a financial commitment, and they actually have honestly said that it's not in their budget for this year or next. But I don't believe that we can wait for it to come up another year when they could potentially budget for it, because in their minds, they have some other projects that they'd like to do. But again, as I said, I believe this affects the impact for the Village of St. Bernard more greatly than it would the city of Cincinnati. So I'd like to ask if we could make a financial commitment so that Roger Bacon knows that they need to move forward with the remaining portion of the fundraising to actually get the project completed.
Mr. President.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Jonathan, didn't this come to us one time and a crosswalk was going to be there, but there was, I forget even who came to say that that's
So-
probably not in the best interest to put that there?
Mr. President.
Mayor?
Okay, so there's been actually a change in heart on that project. So basically, we actually had representatives who came to the table from village, or from the village itself, Roger Bacon, our police department, and also representatives from the city of Cincinnati. So at this point, if you notice, I mean, this engineering was done by the city of Cincinnati. I mean, they are okaying this project. They drew these plans. They just can't pay for it right now. But the point being is that they would be making the modifications and allowing it. When we came together before to discuss this, we only controlled half of Mitchell Avenue. The city of Cincinnati is saying okay to actually constructing this on their portion as well. And again, as they said, they okayed the engineering. They designed this from scratch. So before, we did not have the support because they said that originally the crosswalk that is at Leonard was actually up for an upgrade, but it never happened. Since then, we came back to the table to discuss with them, and it was revisited, and the city of Cincinnati is in agreement that this project would be supported by them. You know, we even had the Cincinnati Police Department involved in this, and they agree, you know, with the need. So it would, aside from being able to safely provide for a better opportunity for students and pedestrians or anyone else to cross the street, it would also aid in traffic calming. So you will actually literally eliminate the ability for people to pass on the right, to go around. I mean, you have the build-outs there. So it will force the reduction of speed.
Mr. President.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Jonathan, the only thing I'm concerned about is, increasing parking there on that side of the street, people crossing the street. We know, I've seen it firsthand, people flying up and down that street. Is there any talks about, like I know they did in Oakley, where they've actually risen and had a crosswalk that was elevated to slow people down from driving up and down Mitchell?
Mr. President, so as far as Cincinnati did not design it that way, as far as to have a raised surface where there is a speed hump, that would be something that we would have to come back to the table with and determine whether or not they would okay that. Because again, we only have control of half the street. That was never really brought up at that point in the discussions based on the engineering or design. It's strictly having the bump outs. So again, you're reducing the flow to only to the center lanes, but it was not a discussion in that manner. Again, we are talking about potentially trying to get that classified as a school zone, but again, we could potentially talk about upgrading that, but I don't know. I mean, that would be something we'd have to discuss with their engineering department.
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer?
I happen to be involved in a couple of the early conversations, and what I remember the city saying is because of the steepness of Mitchell already, the drainage in that area is very complex, and adding a hump would add a lot of cost to the project because they'd have to redo a bunch of drainage. So that was a big reason why they decided not to do that.
Anyone else? I believe the mayor has asked for council's commitment on half of the project. Any motions?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer?
I guess I'll make a motion that we make a commitment for half of the project. I know I've gotten lots and lots of, I'll say, complaints for parking around Roger Bacon from a lot of the residents, and this would alleviate that.
I will second that.
Before I do this, Mayor, are we looking for an ordinance or just a commitment?
Mr. President, I'm looking for,
An
I
ordinance
guess,
is
an
fine.
ordinance, because if we're talking about a $50-some thousand commitment, I think we have no choice, and then we'd obviously also have to deal with the appropriation side here, yes.
I assumed as much. Ms. Brickwick?
Mr. President, so I'm going to have some other appropriation things I want to talk about, but is that what council's wishes are, to put the money into? I guess that would be streets and sewers would be the line item I would suggest for it.
Mr. President, again, that would be a total of $56,530.
So I'm asking, is that
Well,
council's wishes?
Let's do the motion first. So I have a motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Ms. Bettinghouse, to fund half of the project for the crosswalk project. Any remarks?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeVerke?
shouldn't be to put the ordinance up to fund the project?
That's what
Okay.
I just asked. That's what we're doing. The
You said,
ordinance.
that- okay.
So, motion for an ordinance for half the project. Anyone else? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. To be continued. Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
President.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeVerke?
make a motion to go to executive session, end the meeting for collective bargaining.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. DeVerke, seconded by Ms. Bettinghouse, to go into executive session at the end of the meeting to discuss collective bargaining. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Tabergi?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld? Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schultmeyer.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays. Council will go into executive session at the end of this meeting. All right, Auditor, Ms. Brickwig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a few things to report tonight. First being, I was able to invest another $1 million into our Star Ohio account this month because the revenues have been so good coming in. Secondly, and I actually did that before we received this, but we received our second installment of the COVID ARPA money. $228,006.93, which we have earmarked for the playground equipment. Then I sent out an email earlier this week to all council explaining, saying that I would explain the new checks that we're doing. Basically, we ran low on our check stock, and so when I went to reorder them, the company that we ordered from no longer exists. So I called our software company to get some suggestions. So decided to do something different, which is going to cost us some money up front, but it's going to save us a lot of money and make it a lot easier to do the checks. So basically, we bought a module for the software with our Buck software, which was $2,452. That's the module, the setup, and support. And then I bought blank stock of envelopes and checks for $1,708. So basically, the city will no longer have to go out and have pre-printed envelopes or checks. Everything's going to print on the printer from my computer. It only will print from my computer. So nobody can just print checks. But it's going to end up, like I said, it's some money up front, but it's going to save us a lot of money in just the printing. And then also, if you have a voided check or anything like that, we were actually wasting a check. Now we're kind of just wasting a piece of paper. So I think it was a really good investment. The next thing I want to work on, and then I think we'll be all electronicized or whatever, is I'm going to try to look into electronic POs instead of our lovely carbon copy POs. So that's the next thing on my step, and then I think the auditor's office will be all computerized by then. And then finally, two other things. I just want to give a heads up that the fire department employee and overtime line items might be running low in the future. We have an employee that's going to be off for a while on a sick term injury leave. So I just a heads up, we're watching the line item, and just so nobody's shocked if it happens, but we're keeping an eye on it. And then the only other thing is we found enough money for the module in the professional services. I took the envelopes and paper out of miscellaneous, so we should be okay on those line items for now. But professional services 2I9 only has $1,500 left, so I would like an additional appropriation into that. What that is being used for, it was used for some of the legislation for the charter changes, but mostly it's been being used for the property on Greenlee, the outside consultation to get that torn down. So my suggestion is $10,000 into that, so we can continue looking into those things. And so if council's okay with that, I would like to put that on an additional appropriation ordinance along with the $56,000 plus for the sidewalk.
Mr. President,
Mayor,
I apologize if I missed something. What about what we're asking for also to finish the repairs at the pool? Well, I want that slide fixed soon. Sorry, I'm not trying to jump ahead, but all right.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I guess he can report on that. I didn't know what that was. Okay, sorry.
I apologize, Mr. President.
Okay, I was like, what?
all right, anything else, Ms. Brickberg?
No, I think that's it.
Sir,
President,
Mr.
make
DeBerke.
motion to add the additional appropriations to the ordinance.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Ms. Bettinghouse to add the $10,000 to professional services. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. And you said you're finished. All right. Law Director, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the last council meeting, I was asked about the new Ohio fireworks ordinance. I did have a chance to take a brief look at it before I left on vacation, the first vacation I've had since my husband died. So I didn't spend an inordinate amount of time looking at it, but it does specifically permit municipalities to not follow the new law, to opt out of following the new law. The new law allows for discharge, or allows residents or people to possess consumer-grade fireworks and to shoot those off on their property or neighboring property on certain specified holidays. But it does specifically allow communities to not opt in and to continue with their own bans if they have done that. So we do not have to change the ordinance to continue with our ban. I do want to go through and check, because the House Bill 172 was actually fairly lengthy. I want to make sure that our ordinance doesn't need to be tweaked in any way to conform with the rest of it. It also mentions a couple of sections of the Code of Federal Regulations. So I need to sit down and I need to look at all those things. So I may well be bringing you something in the next month or two if I feel that something is needed. But to maintain our own municipal ban on on fireworks and consumer-grade fireworks, we do not have to make any changes. Okay, also before you, you should have before you ordinance number, what is 15? I think it's a blank, but it should be number 15, dealing with executing amendments to the VIVA Trust and the VIVA Plan. This matter was brought up, I believe, May, by the VIVA trustees who are looking to make modifications to the VIVA Plan and to the VIVA Trust language. The concern that they have is that the language of the trust and the plan are basically harkened back to when the plan and trust were put into place, and the state has a different funding system now than what they did. So they need to clean up some of that language, so some of that is directed to that. But they also wanted to change substantively to allow that individuals who are retired and who otherwise qualify for the C9 trust, but who have chosen, rather than getting their own insurance policy where they are themselves are the participant, but are on a spouse's policy, and so they're the dependent, but the spouse's policy is primary. The way the documents are currently worded does not allow for that, so they want to bring that basically consistent with the way the world is now, as opposed to the way the world was, 15, 20 years ago. So it would allow members who are retired employees who are eligible, whether or not they are themselves the person who is the primary on the insurance policy, or whether or not they're dependent on their spouse's policy, to participate in the C9 trust. So there's that substantive change that they want. The other substantive change that they requested is that the policy as it presently stands, and I think that they discussed this previously when they were here, it allows for certain dollar amounts to be paid towards certain things. So $100 a year for a physical examination that's not otherwise qualified, not otherwise covered, or up to $100 for prescriptions, or $100 for allergy shots. So it's certain, and it's up to $1,000 a year as it currently exists, but it's all these little subdivisions and little categories. What they were asking for is that basically we roll those all together. They want going to eliminate the second physical, and there was I think it was paperwork. They want to roll everything together and basically have a maximum out-of-pocket on part of the C9 trust of up to $800 per person. That would be that would be the participant and/or his spouse, his or her spouse, or any dependents that there might be. And I'm not aware that there were any at this point, but up to a maximum of $800, and eliminate those subcategories. So, for example, if you came in with a number of pharmacy bills under the previous, the existing one, you would only maybe get, $100 maximum per bill. But it might be a $300 bill depending on the type of drug. This would cover the $300 if you went to an $800 maximum and rolled all the subcategories together. So that is what they have proposed. So that is what I have brought to you today. So that's ordinance number 15. I'd like that brought, up at the city council and be voted on our next meeting. The calculations, and Peggy, I don't know, maybe I apparently walked off without my sheet of paper, and I do apologize. I'm understanding there are currently 80 members. Presently, if it's at $800, it's a maximum of $64,000. They estimate another 20 people might come in because they are with the spouses, being on the spouse's coverage, which would maybe take it up to $80,000. What I'm being told is that they're looking at their numbers and they're thinking there's no way that's ever going to be spent. But those are your maximum out-of-pockets. And what I was told, in fact, is their meeting today, they're actually spending more per person on administrative costs at this point than they are on payments to our retirees. I think they're looking just for a way to get more people into the C9 trust and to get better usage of it. So, and
Mr. President?
we have a trustee here who could probably answer any questions that you
Mr.
might
Tversky.
have.
Tyler, you said $800 per participant. Is that their husband and wife? Is that $800 for both of them or $800 each?
No, that would be each.
Okay.
Val, can I say something?
Yes, please.
If you
If that's
could
all right with council?
In regards to the C9, the biggest problem, and I've experienced this myself, and I don't mind giving you my figures, that even if we make the current changes that we have, that we've introduced to you tonight, I would qualify for $50. Before the changes, I'd qualify for $50. I asked Dave Fossalusa today, how much would you qualify for, Dave? Under the old system, $20. How much under the new system? $20. I think where council needs to go with this is that the major expense as far as paying from C9, and I found this out myself, will be from ages of retirement to 65. You get to 65 and Medicare takes over, your expenses go way down. And in fact, like I told Val, I was in ICU for 5 days. They gave me every drug under the sun. And with my Medicare and my secondary, with all the drugs they gave me, and God knows how many they gave me, my bill was $0. So there again, like I said, I have 2 prescriptions. It costs me $50 a year in copays. That's all I'd be eligible for. And I have no other medical copays, and I go to the doctor every 4 weeks. So if there's any other questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. We're not trying to hide anything. We are really trying to simplify the process, because I think the way that it's set up with all the different categories, it's an accounting nightmare. And in fact, I'd like to bring it back to be handled here locally, which we think that we can do. And we already have somebody that is willing to do it, because the new location that will have to be sent for bills is down in, what is it, Tom? Lubbock, Texas? Lubbock, Texas. And it's just another complaint by members inside the C9 in regards to having to send these bills so far away and then wait on a response. And they have nobody really to talk to. And I figured that if we brought it back in-house and gave it to somebody here locally, which we already have, if we get the change done as of the first of the year, that they could come to any of our meetings and be able to ask that individual any question they want to in regards to their eligibility or how to fill out the form, because that's the next thing that we're working on, is coming up with a form to simplify the C9 for people that are intimidated by the fact that they don't know how to do it and they don't submit.
Mr. President.
Question, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Got a couple.
Yeah, right.
First of all, why is bringing it back in-house or local dependent on this? That's the
It's
first
not. I was
question.
just informing you that we were trying to simplify the process going from 10 or 11 categories, okay? Because every time a bill would get submitted, and it's on both ends. Let's say it's you, and I'm Kleiss. You send me $100 worth of receipts for prescriptions. And then I eliminate that category because you're no longer eligible. Then you send me another one because you forgot that you already sent $100 worth for prescriptions in the next quarter. Then I'm Kleiss. I'm going to go back and I'm going to see that you didn't have $100 left in your account in that particular category. And I think those man hours are what's adding up that involve those different categories going back and forth rather than just eliminating the categories, simplifying it, okay, and then bringing it back in-house where these people can actually see somebody so that they can submit their application, which, like I said, we're going to come up with a form so that it's going to be much easier for the members in order to submit their C9 receipts.
Mr. President,
Mr. Raycole?
some other question. I'm not sure I should direct them to Peggy or Valerie. In the past, I believe we budgeted $50,000 a year.
Wrong. I'm sorry. That's something different.
Okay.
Okay, well, I shouldn't say that. Okay, so the 50,000, yes, part of that goes to them. But like I had explained to them earlier, they were only asking for that money every 2 or 3 years, which I actually cut the check last year and made them take it. Because that's what happened with the self-insured insurance, why it went bad. Walt, I'm sorry, somebody didn't always, he took the extra money and put it back in the general fund. If it's funded correctly, then they'll have that money in their fund. So they've probably saved council $400,000 since I've been here by not taking the money. And it's like it's budgeted, so it just gets written back in. So they have that. So I don't think you're going to have an issue with that. Like, I'm going to cut them again, a check again this year. They need to fund it the correct way, the way it's set up to be funded. But before me, they didn't do it that way, and I didn't really catch it, and because that's the way they said to do it. And then once I got to looking at it, I'm like, you guys are doing this wrong. So yes, that is the 500. I thought you were asking about the other 35,000 because that's something different. So yeah, that is for that. But like I said, they've only taken 50,000 because I told them to take it once in the last 3 years.
I'd just like to make one other comment, Ray. I have never personally ever submitted to C9. Not that I didn't know how to submit. I just never have, okay? And I just want to go on the record as saying, hey, look, it don't benefit me. And I have no reason to lie to any of you. I give you my word on that because my credibility is too important to me. And as I told Val tonight, our accounting bill is larger than what the members received.
Mr. President.
Ms. Brickley?
And just to add 2 things, I think the another reason to bring it in-house, and I think you did pretty good explaining it, is some of the people that have the questions are older people. They're calling this company in Texas, getting the runaround, where if they just knew, hey, I can call so-and-so and ask them the question, it would make it a lot easier. Because a lot of times they call me and I don't have anything to do with this part of it, and so they get confused. But the other thing I think council also needs to remember that, and I think the date's in here, it's somewhere in 2009, I guess. If you weren't hired before then, you're not even eligible for it. So there is a cutoff date. So if you were hired after the whole trust lawsuit, you're not going to be eligible for this. So it's not like changing this is going to bring in a lot. It's going to bring in some new members, but since there's a cutoff of when you can even get in it, eventually it'll be gone.
Mr. President, and just a reminder that the issue about bringing it in-house is not addressed in this. because tonight was the first time I've heard anything about that. But that's, you know, that's a whole separate issue. I don't know that needs to be done by ordinance. But that is not part of this. Part of this is just changing, basically allowing people who are currently on their spouse's policy to also participate, they and their spouse, if their spouse is eligible, to participate, and then to compress, basically get rid of all those subcategories where they had only certain amounts, reducing the total amount per person eligible per year, per participant per year from 1,000 to 800. But the other issue about where it's going to be handled is not in this, just for purposes of clarification. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
make a motion for ordinance 15, 2022 on the table.
Second that.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Mr. Ray Culbertson, to place ordinance number 15, 2022 on the table. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So ordered. Thank you all. Anything else, Valerie?
I think that does it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Treasurer, Mr. Unger.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I have the Star of Ohio fund balance as of the end of last month. The total there with the state of Ohio is $7,340,684.11, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. I told you I would check into the pool. There are 3 companies, 2 are farther away. We found the closest one in Kentucky. The bids were basically pretty much the same. It's $11,500 to have the slide completely redone. So I'll need an appropriation for that to get it. If the money was in there, it would have been fixed this week, but we have to wait to make the appropriation. So other than that, I don't think I have any other thing to report.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
make a motion to add $11,000 to that. Good.
Okay, Mr. President, this is up to council. In order to get it fixed sooner, would council be okay with using miscellaneous? And that way he doesn't have to wait 2 more weeks to get it fixed? I mean, because pool season will be almost over by the time we get it fixed. Would you be okay with that? And then I could do the additional appropriation to that. It's just an idea so we can get it fixed faster.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Tommy, what was like the project time? Wasn't there going to be a significant period even after it was done that it would sit?
Mr. President?
Mr. Paul.
Josh's fix would have been temporary. This will fix the
Okay.
slide permanently. Well, until it ages again.
Mr. President, anything we can do to expedite the project, I think it's embarrassing having the sign there to begin with, saying that it can't be used. I mean, this should be done soon, and, you know, legitimately, for the people that have paid for a pool pass and not being able to enjoy the facility to its fullest, I mean, I think we need to do what we can to expedite the repairs so at least that it could be utilized in the remaining portion of the season.
Since
Mr.
the
President,
Ms. Bettinghouse.
I would like to make a motion to take the money out of the miscellaneous.
Hold on.
Oh.
We still got the other motion on, as I was about
Okay.
to say.
Hold.
Since Mr. DeBerke made the motion to add the 11.5 to the additional appropriation ordinance, he didn't specify a line
It was
item.
never seconded either.
Is council okay with having it out of the miscellaneous, or adding the 11.5 back to it so that they can use the 11.5 now?
Mr. President,
Mr.
I
Schulman.
did have just one question, and Tommy, I think you might have told us this before, and it's probably way too high. What's the cost for a new slide?
Mr. President, I'll take a shot. I think like 180,000.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah,
I don't vote, but I'm putting a motion in for the 11.5.
yeah, I would agree with that motion.
All right, so all those in favor of the 11.5 going to miscellaneous, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So ordered. All right. You said that's it for you?
Mr. President, yes.
Thank you,
Concludes
sir.
my report.
All right. Tax Administrator, Ms. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the tax collections for June of 2022 were $1,911,880. June of 2022 is up 215% from June of 2021. Now, before everybody gets too excited, that payment that usually I expect in July may have come in June. So let me see what happens in July, you know, how that all settles. Tax refunds for June were $11,398.75. Delinquent tax collected with capital recovery was $2,697. Delinquent tax collected through the Ohio Attorney General's office was $4,969, and taxes paid through the e-file portal were $418. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. DeVerke.
Nothing for finance, but I am working on probably October or late September, doing meet the candidate nights for county races and judge races, meet the candidate nights. So once I get firm dates, I'll let everybody know.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Brickwick.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Service, Ms. Housefeld.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The CIC met last month and just want to let the residents know that the shopping center, we should have some more information hopefully here shortly about the progression on that deal. I know I've had some residents ask me about the shopping center. We also have a person who's currently interested in the empty lots on Tower that CIC is currently reviewing, so we should have more to give at the next CIC meeting, which is Tuesday, July 26th at 6 p.m. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Ms. Bettinghouse.
No report.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. The next St. Bernard Ludlow Grove Historical Society meeting is on Monday, July 18th at 7 p.m., and it will take place in the main level of the municipal building. Next week is Ben Strong Week. Please help to honor Super Ben at the Big Ben Strong Blood Drive on Friday, July 22nd from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. That will also take place in the main level of the municipal building. Finally, another reminder of the St. Bernard German Luau that takes place on Friday, August 5th from 5 p.m. to midnight, and on Saturday, August 6th from noon to midnight. There will be a fresh market on Saturday starting at noon, and the main festival will start at 3 p.m. I'd like to give a big thanks to our major sponsors, St. Bernard Pub and Wiedemann Brewery. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
The only thing I had to report is that a date has been set for the police and fire steak fry. It's September 16th from 4 to 7. Dinners are $20. Thank you, Don.
Thank you. This time, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Bob Hausfeld, 4422 Tower Avenue, St. Bernard. I haven't been to a meeting in a long time, and I was told that they're getting ready to redo Franklin Park. I was just curious when they were going to start that.
Mr. President,
Mayor Stucci.
as far as the prioritization of the order in which the parks are going to be done, all of the equipment is currently ordered, actually for 7 of the 9 parks that are being replaced. Franklin Park is getting new equipment. The exact timeline as to when it's going to be arrived, we're waiting for the update, but it is ordered. And the goal, I'm hoping, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Paul, that we're hoping that could be done by the end of the year is the plan. But it is in process. It's ordered. The rubber mulch, part of that's already started being delivered as it is, but as far as the actual equipment has not been delivered to St. Bernard yet.
Okay, I appreciate it. Hey, I understand that there's the foundation underneath the park at Franklin Park, but is there any way of grading that better before they put down the new playground equipment? When it rains hard, it floods. You can't even use the park for a couple days, number one. And number two, I was hoping to come here tonight and ask you guys to hold off on Franklin Park and talk to the residents up there and see what they think about redoing the park. And the reason I say that is they're going to put, from what I understand, I talked to a few people, they're going to put a brand new playground in at the school across the street. And I really don't see them needing both parks up there. But it sounds like it's kind of late for that, so I don't know. But I definitely think talking to the residents up there would be a good idea about what's going in the park. And that's all I was going to say about that. Number two, I was going to ask, I talked to Don DeBerkey, and he said something to the service director about getting a water bottle fountain dispenser down at the pool. I know a lot of the kids are using water bottles. It'd be nice to have a cold, nice fountain down there for them. And also, on a sillier note, but electronic eyes on the toilets down there. I go into the bathrooms a lot where kids, I guess, aren't flushing them. Be really nice. Then another thing I was going to ask, and I don't know, Mr. Culbertson, I guess you're on the CIC. Who's in charge of records for the CIC? Do you know?
It depends on the record. So if it's financial, you can come to me. If it's leases or contracts, I think Mayor Stuchel has those.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mr. President.
And then, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Bobby, when you say electric eye on a toilet, you mean automatic flusher, I'm assuming,
Yeah,
correct?
the automatic flusher, yes. I'm assuming that's what they're called, something like that. And last but not least, I wasn't going to bring this up, but you guys were talking about it, and I do believe that the pool is an embarrassment. I was down there opening weekend, and I go into a lot of pools with the swim team, and it's an embarrassment. If you look up the ceilings, there's animal like nesting up there where it hasn't been painted since it's been opened, well, I'm guessing 20 years ago. The buoys in the pool have cracks in them where half of them are missing. The railings around the slide in the concession area, it is completely stripped of paint. I'm assuming somebody's waiting for them to just fall apart so they can say we need to replace them, because I don't even know if you can paint them at this point. The missing umbrella on the big one, it's been missing. The slide and the umbrella and all these things, I think it's ridiculous that somebody wasn't on top of this before the pool opened. And that's all. I just want to bring that up. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to address council this evening? If not, at this time, council will go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining, and we will be back as soon as we are finished.